Well, welcome back. Today we have with us a person who's very familiar to the District Court of Guam, Mr. Galo Lujan Perez. We've interviewed Galo a few times over the last few weeks about his perspective on the history of the District Court of Guam, and today we're going to continue our conversation and talk for some time about a man that he worked with for decades, actually. Judge Cristobal Duenas. And Galo, you served as his chief deputy clerk for many years, and actually your relationship with Judge Duenas goes back prior to that. Tell us something about Judge Duenas, and who played such a big role in the history of the District Court of Guam.
Well, thank you, Chuck, for another opportunity to memorialize the District Court of Guam. Quite happy to assist in any effort to document the existence of the District Court. Chief Judge Cristobal Duenas is truly a friend of the people of Guam, and particularly more so, he was my closest friend during that period of time. It was the early 60s all the way to the early 90s, a span of almost 30 years between the Island Court of Guam in the early 60s and then going into my tenure with the District Court of Guam. In the early 60s, I was associated with Judge Duenas as a courtroom clerk in the old Guam Legislature building here in Agana. And so I spent a couple of years at that location before we moved to the Courts of Guam building at O'Brien Drive.
Yeah.
And served with him again for, a good 15 years before we moved again to the Pacific News building, where he then retired in the early or mid 80s, and I left the district court, let's see, 91, September 91.
Okay, and he took senior status. Yeah, so he left the district court officially at the end of the 80s. Is that right?
I believe so.
Yeah, well, the dates aren't as important. Do you remember, so your first professional encounter with him was as a courtroom clerk at the Island Court?
That's correct.
Were you there before he became a judge?
No.
He was a judge there already.
He was a judge there already. I believe he was appointed by Carlos Camacho. But anyway, my status then was a file clerk in the early years of the 60s, and later I worked in the clerk's office and became a deputy clerk, and so automatically I became his courtroom clerk, which kind of opened my interest in the courts and how to work with such a meticulous individual. That is Judge Duenas.
Yeah.
Very learned person, and I remember his not really criticism of documents, but just making every effort to perfect it in such a way that the documents are, especially orders that I draft for him, it properly defines what his orders are and what the case is all about. From there, I just learned all of the intricate ways of trying to fashion those documents. It disciplined me to not just orders, but any type of documents. The court, it gets reviewed and reviewed because Judge Duenas does that himself. Even his personal written orders, he does that. He reviews them until it sufficiently addresses the issues.
So you would characterize him as you said learned, meticulous.
Yes.
I'm sure many other good qualities too, but with respect to his documents and everything, that's one of your perspectives or points. When do you remember anything about him? Did you have any knowledge of him prior to him becoming a judge? Obviously, he was a lawyer here. There wasn't probably that many lawyers here in his very early days. Although you were a very young man when he was serving as a lawyer.
Yeah. I was just
maybe a boy.
Yeah, just coming out of high school. So
yeah, maybe.
I wasn't really familiar with the bar of the island at that particular time. I learned that he was the director of land management before he took the bench.
Oh, that's interesting.
I don't know. I believe he graduated from Michigan or college.
Okay.
Before he came back to the island, and he also practiced in a sense as an attorney general or a deputy attorney general or assistant. I had no connection with that. I just remembered them saying that he came from that profession.
So you worked in his court and during the island court days, and he was nominated and confirmed by the Senate for the district judge position. Did he get you on his staff at the district court shortly thereafter? As I remember, we've talked about this in previous conversations, but
yes, I remember that there was a vacancy in the district court, and so I applied, and luckily, I met the selection, and so I moved to the district court on November the 3rd, 1969, and I remember that was the period of time that Judge Duenas was being vetted for the federal bench, and so he did garner the confirmation from the Senate, and he assumed the bench in December of 1969.
Oh, that's right. You were there about a month or so prior to his taking the bench at the district court. I see. Well, what else can you say about? Let's talk about his character. Is there any? Can you recall any anecdotes or incidents from his cases, perhaps, or examples of his personal courage, or any other qualities?
He's a very again repeating the word meticulous, and he does at that particular time. He does most of his research on his cases, motions, and trials. And I remember him asking either Joe Borja or bailiff or myself to assist him getting the books to his chambers so that to get it ready for trial, because he has already read the briefings of the attorneys, and should this issue come up, here's the sightings. So he's always so prepared. It's very easy clerking Judge Duenas because he makes it a point to try to make the proceedings as calm and as easy as one would would want it. And I learned that doing so really lessened the cost for the litigant by not having a very protracted case or argument in the courtroom.
So he took upon himself, you would say, personal effort into research, maybe more than quite a few other federal judges. He was a scholar.
Yes.
And at that point, in late 1969 and in the early 70s, how many law clerks did he have?
He started off with one, and I guess things were a lot better with the administrative office, and so he was privileged to have a second one. And so I remember us getting those two to support him. One of his law clerks eventually became the clerk of the district court here, Mary Moran.
Okay, and that was later though, right? That was in the 80s?
Yes, just before he retired.
Okay. So in the 70s, who were some of his law clerks that you remember? Like,
Gosh.
when you got there, Roger Krauthamel?
Roger was one of them.
He rotated them, perhaps? Is that?
Yeah. I'm drawing a blank on some of the others.
Well, that's fine. We're
Yes.
really here to talk about Judge Duenas, and what I'd like to get at is some of his character. In previous conversations, you alluded to some of it. He was sort of a courageous man.
Very, very much, Jock. I kind of many times kind of feel sorry for him.
Yeah.
Because of the criticism that he would be getting from, especially the local indigenous bar, the Chamorro lawyers,
Yeah.
who disfavor some of his rulings in favor of the government, the United States government, and they look up to him as being a Chamorro, that he ought to favor the Chamorros, but the Duenas is very straight, and he would many times ponder over the case without saying what his feelings were, but a lot of us would see that his concern, and he would just kind of sit back in his chair, just smoke his pipe, and just think.
He smoked his pipe in his chambers.
Yeah.
Pretty frequently. Was it like smoky chambers, if you remember?
No. Interestingly, I think he does it to kind of relieve some of the stress, but mostly. I remember when we're ready to come into court, and I'd knock, and he would be smoking his pipe, looking out the window.
Well, he certainly had some beautiful views over the years.
But there is where I would conclude that he was just thinking about it, especially sentencings.
Yeah.
And Judge Duenas was a very religious person. He was instrumental in the furtherance of the Knights of Columbus here in Guam.
Yeah.
He started from what do you call it, as a Columbian squire,
Yeah.
all the way up to the Grand Knight, and had influenced me to join the group, and I did.
Yeah.
But missed getting the 4th degree.
Oh.
But he went on and became a Grand Knight.
I understand. Also, talking about his spirituality, he was a daily mass goer, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
Every day before he comes to work,
And
he would go to
yeah.
the cathedral here, Basilica, for mass.
And how about I understand too that during some of his tenure it was quite dangerous. I mean, they were during the days of the heroin trafficking prosecutions. Did he do this kind of thing alone, or did he have marshals to help him, or?
He was one judge that really concerned us because, and the marshal and I would collaborate on how to deal with that situation, because Judge Duenas would not want any security with him. He doesn't want anybody to be up at his home. He was living up here in Maite, and of course it's about a mile away. But he won't have anybody escorting him down here or return to his home.
Was the court ever aware of any threats made against him? I mean,
no, not that I'm aware of.
Okay, so grumblings maybe from some of his opinions, but not threats.
That goes on.
Yeah.
And especially from politicians here. And it was very interesting because I remember during the trial of Governor Berdalio, we had very vocal opposition or resentment by the Democrats, obviously. But then when we had a trial, the land claims trial,
right.
It was a mixture. It came from both Republican and Democrats.
Both sides.
Yes. And maybe we can talk briefly some of the time about the land claims, but that was, again, another milestone in the island about how the land claims were resolved.
Yeah. Well, I remember you also said, you mentioned just now the Berdalio trial. Of course, we've interviewed you about the Berdalio trial. We have that on record and will be available on our website. But you said something interesting about the people that were down below the courthouse praying, right?
Yes.
And he'd
yes.
look out his window and see them praying. Of course, he was a prayerful man too.
Yes.
And you were surmising, you were wondering what he might have been thinking, or
yes, I just have to think that it's really bothering him, whether morally or spiritually, and because there must have been a reason for those group of people to be out there. Maybe it's a sign of protest, but I mean you can decide how to characterize it, but
right.
If there's a group of people praying for something or for somebody,
And praying the rosary, you said, is
yes.
that right? Yeah. Something he probably did every day.
Yeah, it would certainly bother me if I was a judge, that there must be some truth to their cause. But then to go into the courtroom and hear the evidence,
Yeah,
that's very powerful.
I understand.
For Judge Duenas to digest those things and try to look at it, truthfully and squarely. And it's,
Right. You said something, you spoke very highly of his courtroom demeanor, how well prepared he was, how thorough he was. He tried to make it as easy as possible, you just said. Did you ever see him lose his temper, especially in the courtroom?
no,
No. Very
No.
calm, huh?
very, very temperamental guy.
Yeah.
Very much. It's maybe it's okay to compare him with some of the judges, but he is. I don't think there's any other judge that really could measure up to his demeanor.
Did he have a...
I
he used the
know.
microphone in the courtroom, did he? Did he have a microphone?
He does, yeah.
Because his voice... Was
Yeah,
his
he's
voice...
very soft-spoken
Soft-spoken man.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so he needed to amplify his voice in the courtroom. So that
Yes, and I, you know, that's when he comes to chamber
Yeah.
and smokes his pipe. When things are going great, he will smoke his pipe.
Okay.
When things are heated up, he will smoke his pipe, stand by the curtains and just look out. Or he'll leave.
I see. I see.
But he won't say anything to anybody. Just, I'll be back in 20 minutes or whatever.
Okay. Well, that's. I want to thank you for sharing those things about Judge Duenas and giving us a glimpse into the man and the times that he lived in. We'll have other resources on our website regarding him, but he was here through the central part of our court's history and a huge, 2 decades, over 2 decades actually, played a vital role in the Guam judiciary as a whole. So I thank you once again for generously sharing that with us, and it's a perspective that only you could give us, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's